start our live stream. Stream live on YouTube and LinkedIn. And the process takes about 30 seconds. Okay, good. All right. Welcome to our worldwide audience, to our Career Masterclass. We're going to be previewing the trends in cloud computing and DevOps coming up for 2022 with Matthew David, a digital leader at Accenture and one of our esteemed experts at Simplilearn. My name is Stuart Creek. I'm a marketing manager here, and my role is to sit in the background and facilitate. I would like to give you a couple of tips on using the controls for WebEx. Please use the Q&A button to ask a question for Matthew, and please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A at any time they come to mind. We will queue them up for the Q&A portion of the webinar at the end of his presentation, and you can chat with the host and presenter. It will give you the all panelists option if you want to get a message to us. But please, again, put your questions in Q&A. And we will also be doing a couple of polls today, beginning and end of the session. And the first one here is about you. We're curious to know what your current job role is. And we're also checking in with everyone during this pandemic about how they're feeling and how they're holding up with all the confusion and lockdowns and new variants and things like that. So you have about 10 seconds more for the poll. Okay, and here are the results. So the biggest proportion of our audience are students. It's fairly distributed among the other job roles. The job role of other is the second largest contingent. And it's good to see that almost all of you are doing well or doing at least okay. And we hope that sharing this information will help the rest of you feel a bit better about how 2022 will turn out for you. So with that, I'm going to introduce Matthew David is a digital leader at Accenture. He's a leader in cloud, DevOps, AI, and blockchain. And he is a published author of 13 books. And so we're very pleased and fortunate to have him here today. And thank you very much, Matt. I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Stuart, thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be working with you. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully that will come up in a moment. Let me know if you can see my screen correctly.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so first of all, I want to congratulate everybody for being here today. One of the reasons why we have cloud and DevOps in the same title is that it is very difficult to talk about the technology of cloud and the practice of DevOps without referring to both of them together. One of the changes that I have seen in my career is just the explosion of capabilities that you can accomplish through the cloud, but to be able to get to those capabilities has just been a steady and continuous maturing of the skill set, which is DevOps, to be able to deliver those solutions. And so as we look at cloud and we look at DevOps, really the two are very, very much hand in hand. The second point I want to congratulate you on is that you are probably in the most fierce market for talent. And every year I talk about the talent demand for leading technologies, and cloud and DevOps are in that category. And every year it just continues to increase. Interestingly, though, in 2020, we have seen a pivot in demand. I mean, we've seen it globally, where the number of jobs is significantly the availability for those jobs is significantly scaling up, way beyond the ability for people to fill those roles. And this is for all jobs across all opportunities, and none more so than we're seeing with cloud and DevOps. And then the reason why we're seeing just such an explosion of the demand for roles within cloud and DevOps is directly related to automation of systems, to being able to scale to customer demands as people spend more time working from home. Myself personally, I work for a consulting company, and traditionally we travel a lot. I haven't traveled for 2 years. My entire career for the last 2 years has been working from home, which I'm quite happy with actually at the moment. But we see this just across all industries, just the demand for digital technologies has really escalated forward really a whole decade. And so the skill sets you are looking to acquire or have acquired in this space, just really tremendous. So I kind of want to talk about the rapid growth of cloud providers as we kick things off, and you'll hear me talk about really what we call the big three, which is Amazon Web Service, AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform, or GCP. But here's the reality: is that in the last really the last 2 or 3 years, the growth of cloud providers has gone significantly beyond just the big three. Oracle is now a significant cloud provider, driving significant revenue. Certainly, when I look at working with our cloud partners and working with our clients, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have considered Oracle. Today, Oracle accounts for about 5 to 10% of my business. So very important that you look at what Oracle is doing. But outside of Oracle, we have work that's been done with Alibaba. Alibaba has a phenomenal suite of tool sets that you can leverage. And then you have Tencent, Huawei, just a lot of opportunity for growing cloud expertise. So if we look just kind of some of the growth patterns, and this week's an interesting week because we have Ignite from AWS is happening right now, and some very interesting announcements coming out, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. But if we look at just some of the growth, from just the top 3 providers in, and the figures I have here are from 2020, they don't include 2021 figures, but we just see a significant growth, and we're talking about 29% year-over-year growth. I mean, it's just phenomenal. There are very few industries that have that type of growth at that scale. I mean, when you're looking at 29% growth, but in the billions, that's tremendous growth. And we see it across all of the major platforms. It's not just specific to AWS or Azure, it's across all the platforms. And the one that's really of interest is Google. They've seen 50% plus growth. I would say that they are still, for as large as Google is, they are still in the rapid growth phase, and I see that continuing for at least the next couple of years. Again, just a tremendous growth in these spaces. And now, what's interesting though is that the pivot really that companies are going from is, I think over the last 5 years, every company has stepped into cloud in one way or another. But the pivot is not just on data storage and compute power, which is really often the first step that people take when they move into cloud. But the pivot is going into how do you use cloud native, and how do you go ahead and start building out solutions that are built on top of cloud. And this is where your skills as DevOps engineers really come into play, because we're looking at taking services that are available within the cloud environment, being able to string them together effectively, but then also being able to incorporate systems that companies are already running. I mean, so this is the challenges. Most of the companies going to the cloud, they already have been around for 5, 10, 20, 30, even more years, and have large complex systems, CRM systems, supply chain management systems. I mean, just these very large systems. And what they're looking at is how do we take advantage of the cloud and the speed and acceleration that you can have in the cloud, and then bring in our own systems. And this is where having skill sets around API development, event-driven architecture, macro services, all skills that require DevOps teams, and particularly as we now move into DevSecOps, integration of those services. And so let me just kind of skip on to the next screen here. So what kind of the services can cloud providers offer? So I've broken down this slide into like kind of 3 key areas. We have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and solution as a service. And then from that, you have a kind of a breakdown of all the different services that are available, from virtual networking, shared file storage, data services, deployment services, and typically as you look at the structure for many of the cloud providers out there, this is how they break things down. So let me just kind of fill this in a little bit. And so here we have what it looks like for an AWS infrastructure. And I'd be very intrigued to know how many of these services that you've used. One of the things that is very interesting is that as you look at the companies, the cloud providers out there, and the increasing number of services that they provide, something you have to remember is that all of those services can be tightly interconnected with each other. And so this is where you would write functions in the cloud to be able to connect those systems and services together to be able to really accelerate your delivery. Interestingly enough, when AWS and Azure, when those as companies, when they launched, they really only launched with 1 or 2 services, and AWS today has over 1,800 services. And if you bear in mind how complex the environment now becomes, you now have to start thinking about becoming specialized within areas within AWS or within Azure, because keeping up with just all of the services is almost impossible. Consider this, with 1,800 services, all those services, even if they only get 1 update a year, which they're not, they're all getting multiple updates, they're getting extended with new functionality on a regular basis, plus new services are being introduced. You're still looking at a dozen or so changes every single day to all the services across the platform. So I'm just going to kind of skip through the next couple of slides here, but just, this is a breakdown of what we see from an AWS environment. Something very similar with Microsoft Azure. I actually need to do some updates to the slide because we have a couple of missing buckets that Microsoft has over the last year filled out. My personal preference is working in the Azure environment, and this just comes from a bias of I've been working with Microsoft for a very long time. AWS is very good. All the platforms are very good, but this is just the area that I personally enjoy working in. And again, this is a focus on public cloud, and it's interesting that I just saw that question come in. One of the things that we have to also then be looking at into the future, and we'll be talking a little bit about this, is kind of the evolution of what I see as the post-cloud transformation. So public cloud has really done a lot for us, but one of the things that you'll start seeing more and more and were announced just at Ignite this week is just the importance of moving the cloud closer and closer to the enterprise. So having edge environments that are close to the enterprise, having those connectors that allow on-prem solutions or hybrid cloud, private cloud to be connected. Those are going to become increasingly more important. And behind all of this within your DevOps environment is security. And just being able to maintain and manage that security environment. So that was just an overview of the services. They are continuing to evolve and grow over the next year. I don't see any of this shrinking at all. So the next session, question I have is, what are some of the benefits of leveraging cloud native solutions? And I really think that cloud native is going to significantly accelerate over the next year. And hopefully some of you are already learning cloud native solutions. So on this slide is an example of a solution that one of my teams put together. On the right-hand side, we have a modern approach to building out the solution, but not using cloud native services. And so you'll see a lot of the tools that are still considered modern. We have Hadoop, Flume, Spark, Cassandra as some of the tool sets that we're using. Everything is written on a Linux platform, open source stack. In itself, very modern. It's not using kind of the traditional model that you would see with a more older legacy system. But interestingly enough, the amount of time and the amount of compute that we have for that, the actual time to build out that solution was quite some time. It was several weeks to build that together. I think it ended up being like 3 or 4 months to build out a core solution. Now, if you pivot over to the left-hand slide where we have everything cloud native, and what we did is we actually had a small team, and so we went from a team of about 12 people, and we actually had one team that said, look, we feel strongly that we can actually duplicate what we've built, even with our modern tools. We feel that we can actually duplicate that, leveraging all of the services that AWS has to offer. And again, this is just getting a strong understanding of all the services that AWS have, which is just phenomenal, and being able to connect them together with what we call cloud native, which is leveraging functions written in Lambda, which is a JavaScript and Java programming language. Actually, you can write Lambda in many languages, but JavaScript and Java is the preference. And being able to really connect all the services together. What ended up happening is we had a team of 3 or 4 people. The environment itself, as you can see, went from having 10 high-end servers to 0 servers because they were completely running in the cloud. There was no software to deploy because we were building it all in the cloud. The actual configuration and monitoring and security, all of that was being managed by AWS. And we were able to turn around this solution in under a month. So it took a third of the time to develop with a third of the people. And so you start doing the math, and it's like, wow, this is just really a phenomenal story. What I would say is, as we look and start growing out your skills, start thinking about that when you move to the cloud in 2022. Yes, you're going to go there for reasons such as infinite compute power, near infinite compute power, near infinite storage. I think one of the things that Azure will say is that they have for all intents and purposes, infinite storage that you can access. And the barrier to entry is $0, and which is just phenomenal. Stop thinking about the move to cloud being just data and compute power. Think of that as just kind of the stepping stone, that once you actually get into the cloud, now you can take advantage of all the services that are available there, take advantage of the new services that are coming out that allow you to connect with your existing legacy systems and leverage the accelerators. For instance, AWS this week, they have their Ignite conference, and one of the accelerators that they introduced is a visual ML studio, where you can actually build machine learning solutions quickly and efficiently, similar to Microsoft Azure's ML Studio, which again runs in the cloud. So you can actually build these systems that are typically very complex systems all in the cloud. So let's move on to the next screen. So as you look into this space, what are the the skills and proficiencies that you need to be able to come up to speed with the cloud environment? So I would argue that, first of all, being here and learning these skills through Simplilearn is a phenomenal first step. Simplilearn has done a fantastic job of keeping up to speed on the skill sets needed for DevOps and cloud specific. But I'd also then look at a lot of the skills that are out there, a lot of the technologies. There's not just the practice of managing containers, but also leveraging how do you build out your entire DevOps environment from the container technology that you use to Kubernetes and the cloud technologies around that. Look at what the cloud native service providers have from AWS, GCP, Azure, Alibaba, etc. Those are always it's always very important to keep up to date with those skills. And what's good is that there's a lot of services that you can go to out on the internet that can make it very easy for you to be able to understand what skills to look at. So I've actually provided a link to Landscape, and this will provide you the cloud native interactive landscape that you can go to. It's a website, and it allows you to filter through all the different technologies out there. One of the things that you have to consider when you're building out an architecture for a solution, and I run into this with a lot of clients today, is that I hear a lot of people saying, look, I want to be cloud agnostic, or I want to be able to move from cloud to cloud, and that is certainly possible. A lot of the tools that you can use are often open source, and it's certainly a lot easier to be cloud agnostic. But one of the challenges you have in that is that it will inherently provide a significant layer, a significant amount of architecture that you have to build in. And I think if you are suddenly looking at your first solution, or you're looking at having a solution that is either time restricted, or you have a limited number of people, and we're all running challenges with the number of people that can actually work on solutions, or you have just a budget restriction, you may want to consider going and building out your solution as a native solution, leveraging the technologies that are available with that cloud provider. So, how can you take your career and pivot rapidly to the cloud? And there's a number of ways in which this can be accomplished. There are, I would argue that, yes, you can go down the path of getting a degree. The computer science certifications you can get now, whether it's an associate's degree, a 4-year degree, a master's, or a PhD, are much more sophisticated than they were, even 10 years ago. There are, I would say, a fast path to being able to create accreditation for your skill set is to get certification. There's a lot of cloud certifications that you can go through. All of the cloud providers have certification programs, and they're very extensive. It's with AWS 10 years ago, it was just one certificate, and now I don't know how many they have. I think it's like hundreds. But I would certainly, with, I'm not sure if GCP has this, but with Azure and with AWS, I would definitely, if you haven't already done it, do the foundation certificate. It's actually a hard exam to pass, but what you'll have coming out of it is a solid understanding of all of the core technologies that are available within those platforms, and then all of the vendors actually have training programs. So depending on the direction you want to go, you can then take and follow those training programs. In addition to that, all of the vendors, there's constant content coming out. For instance, Simplilearn, we write a lot of articles that follow technologies, as well as providing training. But you'll also find that the leading companies, AWS, Azure, GCP, they all have a lot of fresh content coming out. Myself personally, I love going onto YouTube and watching videos. For instance, with Ignite happening this week, there's a lot of training videos that are coming out about new technologies. And so I'll go onto YouTube, and one of the techniques that I have learned is when I'm watching a video, you can often go into the settings of that video, and I'll increase the playback speed from normal speed, which they have as 1. I'll actually increase it either to 1.5 or sometimes even double the speed to have it play back twice as fast. The reason why I do that is I want to get straight to the core of the information, and if I need to, when I'm actually watching the content, if I need to slow down, I can obviously slow down in real time. But I find that I am more focused on actually watching the content and then actively learning. And then the next thing, once you've actually learned the skill set, is then to go to the cloud provider. And often or not, you'll find that with a lot of the services, you can actually start building out solutions for free. This doesn't apply to all the services, but certainly most of the services that I have used, I'm able to go in and I can actually start building out the solutions for free. And it's something that it gets your skills up. You can prototype out a solution very quickly. And again, one of the things that you want to focus on when you're prototyping, particularly with new technology, is don't focus on building out the whole solution, but build out enough of the solution where you can effectively show what can be done, art of the possible. And then that's when you can then get the investment to be able to move forward. So those are the kind of the kickstarts. Take training, take certification, but then practice by doing, which is fully accessible to all of us. You just need to have a computer to be able to get them. Then after that, I would really focus on building a portfolio. Create a brand about the work that you're doing. Look at giving back. One of the reasons why I write articles on technology, particularly with a focus on DevOps and cloud, is I want people to know that I'm an expert, and the only way that you can do that is by showing people. So build a portfolio of the work that you've done, but then look at sites such as LinkedIn and look at their blogging features, or look at their tools that allow you to do micro blogging, and just start posting content. Start sharing information about what you have learned and why you think it was valuable. It doesn't have to be long and complex, but what you want to do is establish yourself as a thought leader within that one given space. And then what that does is that it really has a twofold effect. One is you are driving value through what you're communicating. But the second is that people then are becoming aware of you. And as I mentioned earlier on, the market for the skill set you have right now is just incredibly hot. And so people want to know that you're out there. So, start communicating effectively out to them. All right, so I think, that was just kind of, covering the content we have. I think we're at the point now for questions and answers. I'm going to go off full screen here, if I can figure that out. What is the most effective way of doing the questions and answers?
So I've got the questions queued up here, and
Excellent.
these
Lots
have
of
been coming
questions.
in throughout the session, and I'll ask you a few of these so that we have a good amount of time for them. We have Sandeep asks if you could actually. I'm going to give you back the sharing. Well, no, I'll do it from my side. He wanted to ask a question about the AWS slide. I'm
Oh,
going to go
sure.
back.
Let me.
Um,
So that was
I've
slide
got it. I've got
9.
it.
Yeah.
I will share it from here.
Yep.
Um,
And I do want to point out that this is not a complete breakdown of all the services, but this is a breakdown of the most popular services.
okay. And let me see if I can see in chat here if Sandeep. So Sandeep's question about this is how many services are offered by AWS?
That's a really good question, because every time I go to AWS, the number has changed, and the number just keeps getting bigger and bigger. What you'll find is at AWS, they have their core primary services. So we have like networking, compute services, security, app services, mobile services. Those will be the primary, and then there's a second, and then for each of the primary services, you'll click, and then there'll be the primary category, and then there'll be services underneath each of those categories. However, there are additional services beyond that. So I think that they will promote They promote like their top 150, 200 services, but there's actually over 1,800 services when I last saw the official count. And again, I'm sure that number has gone up.
Yeah, I mean, it proliferates at an astounding rate.
Yes, actually, I can
Uh,
find, I can pull in. They actually have a catalog which lists all the services. Let me see if I can find that. There we
if
go.
you'd like to display it, let me know.
Let me I'll share the link.
Okay, that's perfect. Um, put that in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the right place.
Okay.
It
And
doesn't, it won't allow me to chat, but I can. Um,
you
yeah,
should,
so you can actually just go to aws.amazon.com service catalog, and it actually lists out all the services, and there's just, I mean, just a lot of them.
okay. Uh, we have a question from Syntherian who in the YouTube audience. Um, it's one of those questions that is very simple in form and very complex to answer, it's which is better, AWS or Azure?
Oh gosh.
So, I mean, I think in general, how do you make the kinds of trade-off decisions to choose which cloud platform is best for your application?
Um, I so there's a number of things you need to take into consideration. You know, like I mentioned that I like working in Azure, but I'm actually certified in AWS, and I really like both platforms. The reason why I personally prefer Azure is just my background is Microsoft engineer, so you would gravitate to what we like. But I would say both are very, very good. I mean, honestly, both are like top of the game. I would also argue that GCP and Alibaba are also equally as good. I would also throw in some of the other solutions that we're seeing from like companies like Huawei, the Red Hat acquisition that IBM made a couple of years ago, really, really smart. So there's phenomenal growth. So that's one part to it. But the second part is as an enterprise, one of the things that you invariably have to make is a decision on who your partner is going to be. And when you look at enterprise scale of going to the cloud, it's not cheap. It's because we're looking at taking the on-premise environment, which you're paying for today, with skilled people, with servers and storage and a building, and you're moving it to the cloud. So you're going to pay for that. But if you're looking to make those kind of changes, I would talk to all of the leading providers, because invariably they'll provide financial incentives for you to be able to move to their environment. So that's the second thing that you'd look at. And then the third is understanding what is the direction that your company or your skill set, where do you want to go, and what do I mean by that is, as you look at, one of the things I always like to do is say, look, where do I want to be 2 years from now? And for me personally, one of the areas that I really want to be good at is what's happening with AI ops. I've been sorry, not AI, so AI ops, pardon me, with AI. So for me, AI is an umbrella term in which you have automation of systems with AI ops. You also have ML ops, but then you also have acceleration of RPA and AI. And it's like, how does the whole AI umbrella of technologies impact my career in the future? So for me personally, I look at it's like, which vendor do I want to follow? And I would argue right now, I feel that that Google is probably the leader in that space. But it's not like they're like furlongs ahead. They've got other companies nipping at their toes as well. So yes, easy question to ask, hard question to answer.
Yeah. There's a similar one, but I think you touched on it. Which of the platforms is most cost effective?
So one of the things that all of the platforms have been announcing over the last year is that their prices continue to go down. And this just happened again this week with Ignite. Amazon is actually building a new generation of chipsets. So one of the things that with a lot of the vendors out there, and I'll throw Facebook in here as an example. When Facebook were building out their cloud environment, they actually ended up building their own chipsets for their networks because they have very specialized needs. And AWS is no different. If you go into an AWS cloud environment, if you see any of the videos, all of the chips, all of their system on chip sets that they have are custom made. And they just introduced a new chipset which allows for, I think, like 25% more energy efficiency, and those kind of efficiencies immediately get converted over to pricing. So what you'll hear over and over again from all of the vendors is that their goal is to get cheaper and cheaper over time. And obviously, we end up spending more time using their services. But hey, that's what value is all about, isn't it?
Yeah. There are a number of questions about careers. Before I get to those, I want to ask, or I want to pass on a comment from Michael, who said, I think that the node dedicated infra ops team is a simplification. That assertion wouldn't bear an enterprise migration to an enterprise level hybrid model or an entirely public hosted model. So is that an accurate observation?
No, because so the solution we actually that I presented was an enterprise level solution. It was one that it was actually a product that we have sold to many companies, and then we migrated. And again, I think one of the things I wanted to stress is that we had built the first generation of it on modern technologies. I think the challenge we have, and I'm working with a couple of clients right now, is most of us already have existing, we'll use air quotes, legacy systems, and some of them aren't as so legacy as we like to think. I mean, we have solutions that we're calling legacy systems, which are mobile apps built in 2015. What we have to look at is the opportunity moving forward is not to move everything to the cloud. The opportunity is how can we get access to all of our data. So the cloud is the tool set, but the data is where our value is. And so this is why my focus over the next couple of years is on the umbrella of AI tools, because what I want to be able to do is be able to mine that data, be able to scale up the access, or being able to work that data through RPA and other technologies, being able to use AI ops to get and manage and secure the data at scale. And so how do we get to that, so that from that we can now start doing business rules, business analysis, and really kind of expose those opportunities. So that's where I see the tool set, which is partly cloud, but also on-prem and hybrid and other tools. That's where I see that becoming more complex over the next few years as we understand more about the value of the data that we have.
Okay. So let's get to some questions that relate to career development. Richard Zokiamute asks, I'd love to venture further into clouds and DevOps, but I'm not a software engineer. Is it feasible to do that?
Absolutely. Just as a frame of reference, my degree is English Literature and Communications. I do not have a engineering background, but more recent, my daughter, her fiance, he just recently came out of the military. No software engineering background, and he's been out for a year, and he has self-taught himself how to build computers, and is now migrating to the cloud. I think what you have to start with is a passion for understanding what can be done. So you're here, you have that passion, and what you want to now start doing is two things. One is there's just so many great YouTube videos out there, which will be starting, and I always look for the getting started or how to start developing in whatever technology. Start working with those. When I was experimenting, I ran an IoT team from 2012 to 2018. And to get myself up to speed, I would sit and at the time, AWS had come out with, I can't remember what the technology was. You remember they had that button technology where you could press the button and it reorder something? Well, you could actually buy the button and actually code to that. And so I wanted to know how to do that. So I watched a YouTube video and was able to then a week later go in and run a demonstration to my client on how somebody could reorder oil for their car by just pressing a button that could be included with the vehicle when it was sold. And it was just crazy easy to do because people have already set the path for you. So don't be afraid don't be intimidated by just what you need to learn, because there's just a lot to learn. Just get started, and you'll be surprised how quickly you'll pick things up.
And I want to note that I dropped into the chat a link to Simplilearn's resources page where we have a bunch of free content, articles, videos, tutorials, ebooks, a lot on the topics of how to get started or how to perform a particular task. So yeah, a lot of
Yes.
is out there. I think you've addressed Emmanuel's question, which was what advice you'd have for people who don't have a first degree in computer science, because you just described that situation for a couple, for yourself and your future son-in-law and a couple of other people. So, um, what about somebody who is a software engineer? What is
Mhm.
the um, best path for the software developer, software engineer to move into cloud computing or DevOps?
So that's a really good question. And what we're looking at is, how do you take your current skills and then skill up to a new environment? And this is something that, again, I work with a lot of clients about. How do we skill up your existing workforce so that they can be embracing these, quote unquote, modern technologies? I think, really, first of all, the first thing you want to do is take the foundation certificate, either AWS or Azure or Google. I would say probably AWS or Azure to begin with. That's just a great start because it'll give you an understanding of the umbrella set of technologies out there. But then the second is sign up with any of the leading cloud vendors. All of them have free accounts that you can use, where you can get in and you can actually start playing around with the technologies. This is something you can do in your own time. You don't have to spend a lot of money on software or services. It's all running in the cloud, so you can do it right from your laptop. So that'd be the second thing, and then third is find out pay through like Simplilearn, where the cost of taking the classes is incredibly low, and the value you get out of them is just incredibly high, and it'll help you kind of jump your skill set forward very quickly.
Okay. We have a couple of questions specific to personal situations.
Mhm.
So Floyd asks, he's a manufacturing engineer and would like to get into IT and data science,
Mhm.
and DevOps and cloud are very interesting. Um, if you're looking at data science versus DevOps versus cloud versus maybe AI ML, what field would be the easiest to transition into or the best place for him to start?
I would say so. So for me, cloud and DevOps kind of go hand in hand. So I would look at going to the cloud because you have the practical ability to learn tools, but then your workflow, which is DevOps, I would learn that at the same time, and you'll see that it kind of gets forced on you because you have pipelines you have to manage where you're moving your content and how you move your solution delivery through the environment. So that'd be the first place. But then in parallel to that is AI, and AI again it's a very large environment, but the barrier to entry to AI keeps coming down. I mean, 2 years ago, I would have said, get started with Python. I think I wrote for you, Stuart, an article on the tools and how to learn Python in 100 days or something. I can't remember. I seem to remember writing something like that for you.
Yeah,
But you can.
it's in the resources section. Yes.
Okay. So you can learn how to become an expert with like tools like Python for free. I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of money on this. The investment you're going to make is on your time. So I would put together a plan. And this is just how I work. And but when I'm providing coaching to my teams is I'm from personal development, I would say, look, don't look at where you want to be 2 years from now. 2 years is your goal. That's I want to be seen as XYZ kind of expert. But if you're looking to have tangible benefit, look at what you need to accomplish in the next 90 days, and maybe even the next 30 days. And the reason why I say that is we all have lives, and we have kids, or we have partners, or we have friends and family. There's lots of influences in our lives. And so it's very hard to be able to make very big plans to hit specific goals over a 2-year period. But it's very easy to make very small plans, such as I want to sign up and um, and use my one service in AWS using their free sign up tool. I want to do that, and I want to accomplish that in the next 7 days. Well, you're talking about an hour of your time, so you can do that. You can put those kind of things together. So that's what I would encourage you to do is have a vision of where you want to go, but then put together a plan that may be a 30-day plan, a 90-day plan of how you're going to get there, and be realistic. Some of there are some videos out there where there's one that I saw where it was how to become an expert in 100 days on something, but it was very unrealistic about the time commitment. You were looking at like 4 or 5 hours a day for 100 days. It's like, well, none of us have 4 or 5 hours a day because we have jobs. That's but you can do that, but just be meaningful in how you approach it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as you're saying, time commitment, for example, Simplilearn's programs, even the most advanced ones, generally have a time commitment that's just 5 to 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
Mostly, basically taking your Saturday and devoting it to your training or doing.
Exactly.
So
And and to that point, one of the things that I have done is, and this is just something that I'm kind of an early riser, so I'm normally up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and I still get up early on the weekend, and so I end up having typically 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday morning and a Sunday morning, where the rest of my family aren't up. And so I use that time to learn something new. And I'm very creative. Sometimes it is learning about a new technology. Sometimes I'm into 3D printing at the moment. So I was learning about 3D printing a couple of weeks ago. So but that's my learning time that I give to myself.
yeah. Um, we- Looking at another question from Richards. So he recently passed the AWS CLF 01 exam,
Congratulations.
and he would like to know, if he's looking to get a role in cloud computing, would be a good next step for him?
It really depends on where your interests are. Are you going to go down the networking path? Are you going to go down the development path? I would look at where you want to go. Right now, you have a good certificate. I'm delighted that you've taken that, but you now have to start looking at specializing. And the reason why I bring that up is that the market, as I've mentioned a couple of times, it's white hot right now for skills, but you are more likely to increase the amount of compensation that you're going to get by specializing in a certain area. And I would say right now, security is probably gosh, they're getting people that have security expertise